Hello everyone, and today we are going to talk about the events that await our characters in the new and long-awaited second episode. And even if you think that everything is more or less predictable, after watching this video, we will completely change our view on the new episode. The first thing I want to talk about is Jax. From the pilot episode, we remember that Jax is a bit rude, unyielding, in a word, a joker, but in the most unpleasant variation of that word. In the second episode, we will still be introduced to Jax as an anti-hero who has absolutely no interest in the lives and mental state of the rest of the circus. I think he will also bully everyone, but at some point he will realize that some characters should not behave that way and start to correct his mistakes little by little. But it will not take long, because if you live your whole life with one way of thinking in your head, it is very hard to change to another. It seems to me that in the next episode, Jax will be left all alone, because after all his so-called jokes, hardly anyone will want to communicate with him. On the background of loneliness, Jax can close in on himself, or, on the contrary, go to a new level because he is ready to do anything to be noticed. It is unlikely that we will see any serious twists in Jax's storyline, because he is just a minor character, which is really nothing. Now, I would like to talk about Kinger. This character is one of the main inhabitants of the circus, even if it does not seem so. In one of my videos, I proved that out of all the current characters of the circus, Kinger is the one who has been there the longest, not counting Kane, of course. Even in the pilot episode, we often noticed that he was already starting to go crazy. I think that trend will continue in the second episode. I think the loss of a loved one in this very circus, as well as the long term, gives Kinger a deeper picture of what's going on around him. In my opinion, Kinger has known for a long time that it is possible to get out of this circus through the very exits that sometimes appear in the show. On the one hand, we can assume that they appear at the will of the administrator, because I already told you that Pomni is an administrator along with Kane, thanks to which she can easily create exits, but she just doesn't realize it yet. Or, as in any digital system in Amazing Digital Circus, there could be a glitch that causes the characters to randomly open an exit to the real world instead of the virtual one. This brings us back to Kinger. In the new episode, there might be such a glitch, and Kinger will be a witness of it. Trying to enter there, he will, like Pomni in the pilot episode, lose consciousness and stay in the void. But as we know, even in a blacked out state, the character who has been in the void still remembers absolutely everything that happened to him in that very place. Kane will get a notification on his wacky watch as usual, but the whole situation will have a strong effect on Kinger, making him even more unstable. Now Kinger will start talking about a way out, although we all remember how he mocked Kaufmo for that, even though he knew the way out of the damn circus. With each new scene, Kinger will become more vulnerable and lost, which will eventually lead to Kinger's final descent into madness. And we all know what happens next. Time will come, and Kinger will disappear from the rest of the circus inhabitants. And then, similar to the situation with Kaufmo, he will be found in his room with a lot of strange drawings and inscriptions. And I'm more than sure that one of these drawings will again be a sinister image of Kane, who this time is chasing Kinger. Kinger will turn into a monster, and Kane will put him in the basement with the rest of the scattered inhabitants of the digital circus. And that, unfortunately, is probably the end of Kinger's story in the Amazing Digital Circus. And now it's time to talk about Pomni. After all, her story, like no other, will be maximally covered by all of us. I am more than sure that despite all the failures in the pilot episode of the Digital Circus, Pomni will not give up her attempts to find a way out. She will probably act casual at first, pretending that she likes everything here and that she doesn't even think about escaping. However, we already remember that Pomni started to have problems in the pilot episode, and her mental state was not the best. And in the second episode, we will first see this struggle between calm and panic. But with time, the panic will subside, and Pomni will start to remember all the unusual things that happened to her. Like the hand she was able to heal herself, even though Ragatha said only a Kane could do that. Or the exits that no one sees, but she sees them all the time. After some thought, Pomni realizes that she is also the administrator, and this circus can be controlled by her. Then her story with the Ragatha begins, as a result of which they will realize how to create exits and that it will be possible to escape in this way. They begin to deliberately create chaos so that all the monsters created by Kane cannot cope with what is going on, and Kane himself will have to intervene. At this point, Pomni and Ragatha will be able to steal Kane's crazy clock for a while and disable the void intrusion notifications. This will allow them to enter the void, but at some point Kane will realize this and start chasing them. He will be able to get Ragatha back very easily, but with Pomni it will not be so easy, and at the very last moment, when Pomni already sees VR helmet that will allow her to return to the real world, she will be met by Kane. And that is the end of the second episode of Amazing Digital Circus. We've covered the most interesting characters and their fates in the next episode, but don't be in a hurry to turn this video off, because now we're going to talk about some very interesting theories about the Amazing Digital Circus. And let's talk a little bit about Kaufmo and Pomni. Every time I watched the pilot episode of Amazing Digital Circus, I kept thinking that these two characters were somehow connected. As I delved deeper into the episode, I realized some of the connections that led me to believe that Pomni and Kaufmo were the same person. Let's get to the bottom of this together. In the beginning, we were supposed to meet Kaufmo, but for some unknown reason, he was not in the circus. And right after him comes Pomni. You may think that this is obvious to everyone, but look further. The symbol of every circus has always been a clown. Sometimes it could be a jester or a harlequin, but the idea is the same. Kaufmo is the clown, but Pomni is the jester. Immediately after appearing in the digital circus, Pomni begins to see strange images, including a door that is the exit from the Amazing Digital Circus. Kaufmo has also been saying all along that he sees some kind of exit and has been telling everyone else about it, but like Pomni, no one believes him. The fact that Kane can see a way out is not surprising, since he is the administrator of the circus, which means he is responsible for everything that happens in the circus. And since the circus is digital, Kane can create anything he wants in it, but no one else is allowed to. All the characters in the show have never seen or heard an exit, which means that such an ability is only available to a few, and it certainly won't be in 2 circus inhabitants in a row. This, among other things, confirms my theory that Pomni and Kaufmo are the same person. But it's not over yet. It was seen that the monster that Kaufmo had become first attacked Regatha, although this monster initially came close to Pomni, but for some reason only looked, but most likely smelled and realized that this was the resident he was supposed to be. Apparently, when creating the monster illusion, Kane pre-programs them with the memory of who their master was, and gives them instructions not to attack in any way, but just to pretend. But we'll talk about monsters too, a little later. Remember that Kaufmo was talking about video exits, so he probably went inside like Pomni, and that desk was actually the place where Kaufmo moved into the circus, but unfortunately, that's where Kane was able to get to Kaufmo, so he couldn't escape, and it was that desk that was the only witness to Kane destroying Kaufmo and forcing him to be reborn as a cute clown girl. Sometimes, however, Kaufmo's old memory overcomes the shell's memory, and he remembers various moments, such as the incident near the desk. Finally, I'd like to talk to you about the kindest and most likable character in this amazing digital circus, Regatha. We've all seen that she really tries to help all the newcomers to the digital circus, but unfortunately, if you look closely, you can easily see that this is nothing more than a mask that Regatha wears to keep from going completely insane. In fact, in the conversation between Pomni and Regatha, we can clearly see that as soon as Regatha starts telling the truth about the digital circus, her mood immediately changes and she becomes frightened and strange. Perhaps Regatha, like Kaufmo, was humiliated and bullied by Kane a long time ago, but she was able to overcome herself and make Kane think that she is not bothered by what is going on around her, but we know the truth. As you may have noticed in this video, I didn't mention a single word about references to the new trailer of the 2nd episode. This was done on purpose, because that trailer has already been analyzed, and I think many of you already know everything. And I hope you enjoyed this so-called return to the roots. I wish you all good luck and success, and I'll see you soon. Bye everybody. Bye-bye.